Mordechai Becher, welcome to the Gateways Parsha vlog. This is the Pesach vlog, not for a Parsha, but for a festival, the famous festival of Passover, Pesach, the Exodus. It is interesting, the Exodus is mentioned in the Torah about 30 times, over 20 times, probably 30. An incredible, the Torah frequently says, do this in order to remember the Exodus, or keep in mind the Exodus. And it's interesting, if you do a survey of a lot of the places, I would say most of the places where the Torah mentions that God took us out of Egypt, remember the Exodus, not only in the Torah itself, but also in the prophets and writings, we find it associated with one thing. A very interesting common denominator. I'll give you a couple of the places. You should have just weights and measures, because God took you out of Egypt. Don't oppress the poor. Don't lie to your friend. Don't cheat people in business. God took you out of Egypt. Be kind to the stranger. You were strangers in Egypt. Be kind to the convert. You were strangers in Egypt. Free your slaves. You were slaves in Egypt. And so on and so forth. What it appears is that Egypt and the Jews, we have point and counterpoint. The Egyptian society was one based on oppression. You are the stranger. You are not native-born Egyptian. You are the Jew, etc. So therefore you are now subjected and condemned to a life of slavery and oppression. Right? I am the Egyptian. That is how it is. I am the master. I am the overlord. So when we got out of Egypt, the natural inclination of most people, you get out of something like that, is you want to become the Lord now. You want to become the master. We were the slaves. That's it. Now we're the masters. We're going to in turn oppress others, etc. What the Torah is telling us is, no. Coming out of Egypt means that we should have been trained to understand what the oppressed feels like. We should be trained to understand what the stranger feels like. We should be trained to understand what it means to be cheated of your possessions, of your privacy, of your family, of your land, etc., etc. And so what the Torah wants for the Jewish people, and this is one of the reasons we went to Egypt in the first place, is so that the Jewish people could learn to be sensitive. We could learn to be philanthropists. We could learn to be just. We could learn to be kind. And actually, throughout history, I think we have learned that lesson to a very great degree. I mean, we've been exemplary in terms of our philanthropy, charity, helping Jews and non-Jews alike. It's an incredible thing. The amount of charity that is given by the Jewish community, but for everyone, is quite amazing. I think part of that comes from the lesson of Egypt. We accept converts, and we treat them, and we should treat them with sensitivity and with care. And we should not oppress the stranger. And just because I can take advantage of someone does not mean I should take advantage of someone. So one of the lessons, and I think probably the primary lesson of the Exodus is that, and that's actually according to an interesting book I read called 6,000 Years of Bread by an anthropologist written in 1946. He points out that bread was actually given out by Pharaoh at his discretion to the people. But he says it's interesting to note, people were not aware of personal freedom, but they felt they were free of starvation because Pharaoh gave them bread. But he says, but the bread was given at the whim of Pharaoh. So bread, therefore, chametz, the leavened bread that Egypt was so famous for, bread basket of the Middle East, was given at the discretion of Pharaoh, the Lord and the Master. So he says we avoid that for all of Pesach as a way of having in mind that bread should not be something which is given only at the discretion of the ruler, etc. It should be something that I can earn, and something which I can buy, and something which is available. And so in a sense it's also part of that same lesson of point and counterpoint, justice and injustice, the oppression and freedom that we learn from Pesach and from Egypt. And that's why Maimonides says that one of the central ideas, and we actually start the Seder with an invitation to people to join us at the Seder, people who are unfortunate, people who are lonely, people who are poor, etc. And Maimonides says one who celebrates a festival in their house, they close the doors of their house, they seal off their courtyard, they celebrate it only with themselves and their family. He says and they do not invite the poor, the lonely, the widow, the orphan, etc. He says such a person is not worshipping God, but they're worshipping their stomach. And he says of such festivals, God says to the prophet Isaiah, I will throw the refuse of those festivals in their face, because their bread is only for themselves. And since their bread is only for themselves, it's disgusting bread. So when we eat matzah on Pesach, we understand that bread should not be only for ourselves, it should be something to distribute to others, that justice is something not only for ourselves but for everyone, freedom not only for ourselves but for everyone, and for us on a personal level, Someone looks a little different, behaves a little different, is a little different. Someone comes from far away. I have an advantage over someone. I have superiority over someone, etc. Don't take advantage of that. Don't use that superiority. Pesach tells us you were slaves in Egypt. Understand how that person feels. This is Mordechai Becher with the Gateway's Parsha vlog. Thank you for listening and watching. We will see you after Pesach.